Continuing in Seneca's On Anger, Book 3, I think I'm going to just read a few passages I have highlighted, and I'll try to not say too much about them. I'll try to keep it brief, and thereby move towards the end of On Anger, Book 3, though I doubt we'll be able to get to the end in this video, and I don't know how many more videos, perhaps only one, will be necessary to wrap up this text, perhaps more. In this edition, the Oxford World Classics edition of some writings of Seneca, we're now on page 39. Seneca says, "It is the mark of true greatness not to feel when you have received a blow. So the huge wild beast calmly turns to survey barking dogs. So the wave dashes to no effect on a great cliff. The man who does not become angry maintains his balance, unshaken by harm. The man who does become angry loses his balance." So Seneca is a Stoic philosopher. Stoics are aiming at serenity. They're aiming at being undisturbed, and indeed undisturbable. They're aiming at a life that is invulnerable to misfortune, or at least to harm suffered from misfortune. He's telling us, be like the rock that the waves crash against, and the rock is unmoved. The rock on the seashore. "But the man whom I have just placed beyond the scope of all damage holds in his embrace, as it were, the highest good. Not only to man, but to fortune herself makes this response." Now, the word Seneca gives to the properly virtuous person who is invulnerable to external circumstances. "Do whatever you will, you are not capable of undermining my serenity. This is forbidden by reason, to which I have entrusted the guidance of my life. The anger I feel is more likely to do me harm than any wrong you may do me. And why should it not do more? Because its limit is fixed, whereas there's no telling to what length anger may carry me." What external circumstances can do to harm you has a fixed limit. It can never affect your own mind, your own response to circumstances. What can harm you is your own response to circumstances. Don't botch it. Stick to reason at all times, etc., etc. The greatest punishment of wrongdoing is having done it, etc., etc. All of us are inconsiderate and imprudent, all unreliable, dissatisfied, ambitious. Why disguise with euphemism this sore that affects us all? We're all flawed, and we all tend to be jerks sometimes. All of us are corrupt. Therefore, whatever fault he censures in another man, every man will find residing in his own heart. Don't blame people for what you do in your anger. Now, page 41. "How much better it is to heal a wrong than to avenge one." It's better to heal a wrong than to avenge one. Page 42. "It is shameful to hate a person who deserves your praise. How much more shameful it is to hate someone for the very cause that makes him deserve your pity." Now, I suppose this might call for just a little bit of commentary. And I'm not finding a whole lot in the immediate context that clarifies how to make the commentary, so I'm just going to go with a very straightforward, simple answer. What is he talking about? It is shameful to hate a person who deserves your praise, but it's even more shameful to hate someone for the very cause that makes him deserve your pity. He's talking about people who are bad, or who do bad things anyway. A person does something bad. You should pity that person for his bad behavior. Bad behavior always harms, first and foremost, the person who does it. That's that's a pretty consistent position of major ancient philosophers. Plato's Republic, Stoicism, Aristotle, moving towards medieval era, Augustine, Boethius will say this sort of thing as well. Okay, so bad behavior harms the person doing it. Virtue is its own reward, vice its own punishment. Or, depending on exactly which philosopher we're talking about and how this perspective is articulated, virtue includes its own reward, vice includes its own punishment, or leads to their own respective rewards and punishment. So, someone does something bad, you should pity him. You should pity someone who does wrong rather than hate him. I almost want to quote from The Fellowship of the Ring, the movie here. Um, I'm trying to remember if the dialogue I have in mind has Frodo hating Gollum, or if it's just Gandalf advising him to pity. I think it's probably just Gandalf advising him to pity. There's no explicit hatred for Gollum, but Frodo does have to deal with frustration and maybe anger at circumstances. And Frodo says it's a pity that Bilbo didn't kill Gollum when he had the chance. And Gandalf says, pity? It was pity that stayed his hand. And then he goes on to give him some sage advice. And of course, it's better in the book than in the film. Let's see, what do we learn from this? So what do we learn from the classic scene in Tolkien's The Hobbit, where Bilbo has pity on Gollum? Again, the book is always better than the movie. As I recall, the Peter Jackson film, for all the terrible, terrible flaws of the Hobbit trilogy by Peter Jackson, I think they did this part very well. As I recall, I thought the pity of Bilbo was portrayed very nicely. Bilbo could have hated Gollum. And Gollum was planning to eat him. It would have been a fairly normal response. But what did Bilbo learn instead? Have pity for this poor creature. Gollum is a victim of his own crimes. Pity is a very appropriate response to someone like Gollum, and it's much more edifying. This connects nicely to rewinding a couple of pages. How much better it is to heal a wrong than to avenge one. It's the sort of advice Gandalf might have given to Frodo or Bilbo, and it works. It really works. It sure worked out well in the story. All right, let's see. Page 45. He's just been talking about money, the problems that surround money. It brings exhaustion to the court, sets fathers against children, concocts poisons, hands out swords to assassins, etc., etc. This is what makes the nights of wives and husbands noisy with quarreling. Yeah, that can happen. Married couples fighting late at night over money. And, good heavens, long description of trouble related to money. Come now, he says, page 45, after talking about money, make a tally of the other causes of anger. What are the other things that cause anger? Money and food, drink, and the elegant occasions we have contrived for them to bolster our standing, insulting words, disparaging gestures, stubborn beasts of burden, idle slaves, suspicion, and the spiteful misconstruing of another's remark, etc., etc. etc. Causing man's gift of speech to be counted among the wrongs of nature. Believe me, the things that incense us to no small degree are small indeed in importance, like the frivolous reasons for children quarreling and coming to blows. Children fight over really small, silly things. And they're no different from adults in this respect. These days, my goodness, your computer freezes. And people say things you don't like on social media. Those are other causes of anger. But none of these things which we pursue so intensely is serious. None is of any importance. The well-functioning computer, the people not saying bad things, or maybe even saying good things on social media, or money, food, drink, elegant occasions we have contrived for them to bolster our standing, good words from others about us. None of these things which we pursue so intently is serious. None is of any importance. This, I say, the fact that you attach great value to trivia is the source of your anger and madness. And this might be the most important summary of a Stoic position on anger, and a good point to end this video. The thing that above all causes anger is the mistaken judgment that trivial things are greatly to be valued. They're not. What is greatly to be valued is you being good. So you be good, and don't worry about money. Don't worry about what other people say about you. Don't worry about whether your computer is working properly, or whether people are saying good things on social media or stupid, annoying things. Don't worry about insults. Don't worry about food and drink. Worry about whether you are being a virtuous person. That's your responsibility. That's what is of great value to you. And greatly value virtue, don't greatly value these things that are of no significant value. Thus saith Seneca.